Hey, I'm Cory.
And I'm Laura, and today we're starting a brand new series on trust.
Yes, now trusting people can be much easier when we're young. For example, kids jump off the side of the pool trusting that their parents are going to catch them. Now, for some reason, as we get older, it gets a little harder to trust people.
Yeah, that's unfortunately true, Cory. I don't know why it's so much harder to trust people as we get older. But one example I can think of people trusting others is a trapeze artist. They have to trust that their teammates are going to catch them even when they get thrown up in the air and there's no safety net underneath.
Now, that would definitely take a lot of trust and a lot of skill. Let's take a look at our big idea. We can trust God even when we don't understand what He's going to do. Watch this.
Oh, yeah, baseball's in the Bible because in the big inning. Well, hello again. I missed you guys. It's good to be back, and we're talking about some crazy stories today that involve what I know is gonna be just your favorite topic, old people. It's a whole series on Grandma and Grandpa. Are you ready? Are you excited? Good. So let me start with a story from my own life. So I grew up in Western Canada. Beautiful, glorious mountains, one of the most amazing places on the planet to grow up. And I was an avid snowboarder. I was out one day and we were backcountry. I'm looking out over this cliff and my gut was telling me, ooh, I don't know about this, but I just had to trust myself that I could do this unbelievable run that nobody had been on yet, at least that I knew about, and just to have this incredible experience. And so I took a few deep breaths. I just said, just trust, just trust, just trust. And I hucked myself off a cliff in the Rocky Mountains. And you know what happened? I'm gonna tell you at the end of this, because now it's time to dive into it. And our big idea, our main point is, we can trust God even when we don't understand. This is the fine line that we call faith, between trusting something that could just be in our heads and trusting something because we believe it is genuinely the voice of God teaching us, guiding us into something that maybe we never would have gotten to on our own. And this is where a character named Abram comes into play. Now, Abram grew up in maybe my favorite city name ever, Ur. It's literally just called Ur. Abram of Ur, Ur. It's fantastic, it's so good. So one day, Abram is sort of walking around. He's doing pretty good. He's a wealthy guy, but he's an older guy. He's about in his 70s, so a couple years older than I am right now. So Abram was pretty settled. Settled in the way that you think of, when you go visit your grandparents and stuff like that, chances are the place is littered with what we might call knickknacks or whatever. A grandparent's house. They're rooted. All of a sudden they announce to you, hey, guess what? Tomorrow, we're moving to Las Vegas. It's weird because you probably shouldn't move to Vegas too often, but it's weird when you're old and you're sort of rooted in. But this is exactly what Abram does. He's got his home in Ur, 75 years he's lived there, and all of a sudden he starts to talk about the fact that he's heard a voice that's calling him to another land. Now that's weird on its own, but that's just scratching the surface. This move has tremendous spiritual significance for both you and me. So let's look at Genesis chapter 12, verses 1-3. The Lord had said to Abram, leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. This line right here shows how rooted Abram was. This was his home. This is his family. He had grown up here. This is where he was going to be for his entirety of his life until this moment comes along. I'll make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. And all the families on earth will be blessed through you. All right, take a look around at the people that you're sitting there with. Is anybody wearing any kind of clothing, a hat, shirt, anything like that that has to do with the sports team? Anything? Okay, good. So maybe you've seen a few people wearing a baseball hat or that has like a hockey team, football team, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is that as human beings, we tend to be very regional. We cheer for the team, the home team. All cultures are built up around that. We have local areas that are our area, our home, and we root for the local team. In the ancient world, there's not baseball, there's not hockey, there's not football. They had regional deities, and by deities, I mean gods. So you had God that was in charge of the harvest. You had a God that was in charge of war. You had a God that was in charge of fertility. You had the moon. You had the sun. You had all these different deities that were in charge of these different things. And your region, you had a hometown God. When Abram is called out of his home to a whole other land, there is a deep spiritual meaning behind this, because the God that is calling him out is not his regional God. And this would be a real challenge to Abram's understanding of how the world worked, which makes his leap of faith that much more incredible. God is saying, you are here now I want you over here. And when you get over here, you're gonna find out that guess what? I'm speaking to you over here as well. So right off the bat, Abram's gotta think, how powerful is this God? Who is this God? And who this God is the fundamental journey that Abram's gonna go on. So Abram goes. He ends up in this land we call Canaan, and you're gonna see the Canaanites. They're gonna come back tons and tons and tons throughout what we now call the Old Testament. But when he gets there, he hears from this God again. He says, look around. And this God says, everything you see, this is the land I'm going to give to you. And Abram's pumped. He's super excited. So he does what we all do when we get super excited. He takes a bunch of rocks and he stacks them up. Isn't that what you do? I know that's what I do. No, nobody does that anymore, but there's a point to that too. He marks that place as a place that is special because he's heard something there. He sets this up because this is a fundamental moment in his life and he wants to remember it. So this pile of rocks will remind him of what God had said to him. And even the fact that I'm calling him God right now is a journey that Abram is still on at this point in the story. You know, the thing that I've learned the most is a lot of people are scared to be great. We're a lot more comfortable settling. Small is safe, but the God we follow doesn't play it safe. God believes in you. And when God thinks of you, he thinks big. You are God's big idea. The great legacy that Abram leaves to us is a story of a human being trying to figure out who God is and trusting him through the failures, through the missteps, through all that other stuff. And here's the great thing is God does reveal himself to Abram. So to wrap up, let's return back to my story. I'm in the Rocky Mountains. I have to trust myself, but my gut, that voice inside me said, don't. It was my ego. It was my head that was like, yeah, you got this. Prove. To who? There was nobody around. Prove it to myself? Fine. So I hucked myself off. I did not have it. I did not have it at all. As soon as I threw myself off, I was like, nope, this is a mistake. It was a total yard sale. It was terrifying. This is what I'm talking about. There will be a life full of mistakes. And part of life is falling. We're gonna see that a lot in Abram's life. No one is calling you to be perfect. What we're calling you to do is take the steps. All right, that's it for now. I'm so excited to be digging into this story with you. So until next time, I'm Jamie Robertson, you are you, and both of those things make me very happy. God bless, and we'll see you again.
You know, I've heard the story of Abram moving to Canaan a bunch of times, but it wasn't until Jamie explained it like that it made me realize how big of a risk Abram actually had to take.
Yeah, during those times, they didn't have any cell phones or internet to research where he was going to move to. Abram blindly followed God and trusted that he would fulfill his promises. Have you ever had to trust someone where you had no idea what was going to happen next?
Yeah, actually I have. I worked at a summer camp a few years back and I was asked to help lead a caving expedition. So I had to help all these kids go into little holes about this big underground. And you know what? Even though it was a little bit scary, I decided to trust the main leader and it ended up being a lot of fun.
That sounds so awesome, but I'll admit, I'm a little bit claustrophobic and I'd definitely be scared. Let's watch this video where Kathryn shares with us how she learned to trust God.
I love hanging out with friends. I love hiking. I love spending time with my family, with my dogs. I love camp. That's my favorite place. And I love sitting by the water. My parents got divorced when I was about 3 years old. It was really hard on me just not having my dad around. He was someone that was really special to me, and I felt like I never fully got to know him. And it was just a really tough time for all of us having that going on, and then my dad passed away. I started seeking attention in the wrong places, and I started trying to fill that void in a really negative way. And I started doing things that were going against who I was and who my mom was creating me to be, basically. Well, I was introduced to the Underground. The Underground is the youth group at the church that I attend, and that's when the healing of this journey kind of began, and that's where ultimately I learned who God was, and I started being more interested in learning more about him. And that's when I came to the realization, he's my father, and even though I don't have an earthly father here, he's still there, and he gives me so much more than an actual dad could ever give me. I had to change a lot of the things that I was doing. I had to leave a lot of the friends that I had, kind of facing high school on my own, and that's what the past 2 years have been, is just me kind of pushing forward, and there have been many like down parts of it, and it's been hard, but through the help of people at youth and just like the encouragement of the community around me outside of school, that's what's kept me moving forward. In high school, like there's a lot of fakeness, I guess you could say, and there's not true friendships, and it's always a competition with everyone, and it's a lot of comparison. And I think that when I got to the underground and people would just approach me and like actually be interested in finding out like who I was and like, tell me about your story, tell me about your life. I thought that was such a different experience, and I think that's what opened my eyes to like true friendship and just like the realness in people, and just like knowing that people are there for you and knowing that they care and knowing that they love you regardless of the stuff you've done or the stuff you've been through. I love that about the underground. And one thing that I've learned is that even if we can't see where God is going with things, it is 100% worth it, and His plan is ultimately bigger and greater than we could ever imagine it to be.
I think in one way or another, we can all relate to what Kathryn went through.
Definitely. But what I love most is that she realized that God is her father and that she can trust him even though she doesn't have clear answers to what her future looks like.
Definitely, and that's a great place to be in. Why don't we go into our small groups now and talk about what that can look like in our own lives?